welcome to my channel. Today we are going to do a quick, easy art journal page in under 30 minutes. And we're going to use a napkin in an unconventional way. We're going to mix and match elements that we have in our stash, things that wouldn't normally go together. So my goal today was to use these scrapbook papers from Stamperia. Now, mostly I use them for the focal images, but there are some sheets that are just backgrounds, or there's backgrounds on one side, so I want to use them. I don't want to store them in my stash. Love this globe one. I'll come back to it another day, but these two are the ones that are calling to me right now. So I'm grabbing my napkins and I'm pulling napkins that match the color scheme. These roses kind of match, not that one. And I'm just flipping through. And I left this video in because I want you to see the process that I go through. I pull them out, plop it on the background. Oh, the poppy looks really good, but I've used that one. So does this Buddha. This was a Buddha napkin. All these napkins come from Ninny Napkin. Oh, there's a red one that I like the color of that one as well. No. So I just flip through them and try to decide very quickly. Either it's a yes or it's a no. Then I remember I have this big napkin. It's called Mona, and I've cut it out. Now, if I put it on here, I can cover up that fish, which, I'm never going to art journal with that fish. I could layer it with the Buddha napkin as well. I could use two of these and have that poppy. This is really working. The color's perfect. Then I look up, I see my Julie Nutting doll, and I'm thinking, and I don't know what made me flip it upside down, but then I did, and I thought, I could use the poppy as a skirt for my girl, kind of like a flamenco dancer. I love the red with the background, so now decisions have been made. I'm going to use that scrapbook paper as an instant background. And that's the way you can really minimize your art journal creative time. I like this element over here, so I don't want to cut it out. So I'm going to save that. Then I decide, what happens if I cut it here and have her legs come through, like the skirts are flying in the air. So I thought I'd give that a try, and I'm playing with this. Do I want to layer two napkins together? Because when you're using napkins, you can do that. And whether I use one napkin or two is going to be determined on how I set up the orientation. So I'm just cutting a little bit more, opening it up, and just trying things out. That needs to go around her waist, so a little bit lower down, not up to the top. So if you don't have the Julie Nutting stamps, I highly recommend them. I have used them so much. They're so very versatile. But if you don't have them, you can find a girl in a magazine picture and use it. Now I cut off the excess, saving that other element that I wanted. And now I'm just going to glue this down on my 9x12 Canson Mixed Media art journal page. I take them off the coil so I can work flat, and I only do one side. So basically, this is my background. There is so much interest in this paper. They've got stamps and everything. I am using it as a quick, easy background. And some scrapbook papers, that's what you can do. Another time with another one of those, I may add to it. So the poppy, after taking off the excess plies, I'm just gluing down onto copy paper. And this is even recycled paper. It was a shipping, packing papers that I got in the shipment of napkins. So once that's dry, I'm just going to cut out the poppy. And now I'm going to decide if I'm going to use 1 or 2. If I center it to the page, I need to use 2 of those poppies. And if I have it all going off the page, I only need 1. So I'm cutting it open, and I use my X-Acto knife here. And now I'm just going to play with it and cut it off and shape it so that it fits and it looks good to me. Before I glue it all together, I am going to paint out the black center of the poppy. And I'm putting a coat of white gesso here. And then I'm going to paint it red-orange. Now here I grab my cadmium red, and then I'm adding some of my Naples yellow. I come and add some orange later on to match the color. But we'll be adding or tweaking the colors later on. But right now, before I glued the girl down, I just wanted to make sure that that was taken away. I didn't want that darkness in there. I'll be adding some shading later. So now I want to colorize the Julie Nutting doll, and I've just mixed up some of the Naples yellow with orange and white gesso to make a flesh tone. And I'm just painting that on with a small brush. She's been stamped on some mixed media paper, so there's some thickness to her. And when I get out my stamp, I do multiples, so things are in my stash ready to go, so I don't have to get out the ink pad, get out the stamping platform at any time. So that's another way you can cut your crafting time. I'm just painting her hair. I chose to make it dark for contrast. I didn't think the yellow would show up so well against the background. And I'm mixing brown and black and some of the yellow. And I slip her into her dress, into her skirt. I think that's so cute. And really, would you know that that was a poppy at some point in time? Decided to give her black shoes. And once I have the placement, I'm going to first glue the doll to the napkin. And then glue my now focal image to the background. So we've mixed and matched a stamp and a napkin to make our focal image. And the size of that poppy is really good. The background's very neutral, but it has that little bit of red. This red just really brought everything together. And I'm giving it a good coat of gel medium, so it turned it into a non-porous surface. I have this Lovebirds stencil, and it has these blossoms on it that kind of mirror the cherry blossoms that were in the background of the Stamperia scrapbook page. I just want to make it a little bit larger and add to it. So I'm masking off parts of this stencil that I don't want. So when I'm looking at this stencil, one, it's a sign stencil, and I'm using it for an art journal page, not a sign. And two, I don't want those budgies. So I'm using part of it. So look at your stencils, your stamps for motifs or parts that work for other purposes. Don't see it as the whole all the time. Now I'm putting TCW modeling paste through the stencil, and I'm applying this with a key card. And once I remove this, I do stop and I do clean my stencil, which is really important when you've used modeling paste through a stencil. You want to preserve your stencils. If I was just stenciling with acrylic paint, I don't worry about cleaning it. But modeling paste, absolutely. So I lift it up and it's there. We are going to colorize this in a minute, but right now it just needs to dry. And the TCW modeling paste has a fairly quick drying time, which is one of the reasons I like it. So while that's continuing to dry, I'm going to do some shading and add some interest to the skirt. And I'm using my angle brush and my shading technique to shade, add to this, bring out layers in the skirt, ones that are actually there and ones that I'm just adding. Remember, the napkin is the base, it's the beginning, but then you can tweak it and make it your own. The shading is bringing out more of the ruffles, and it's also allowing it to, the focal image, to step off from the background. I also shade, right now I'm shading on the napkin part, but I'm going to shade on the paper part, just here. And between the two, that really sets this off, the focal image off. And then I'm shading the Julie Nutting doll as well. Now I'm using some orange and red, and I'm coming in with a bit of a wash of the color just to tweak up the color and give it more of a painterly effect, so it looks more like I've painted it than it does I've just glued down a napkin. And I am mixing red with orange. And then I want to paint out the top of her dress here to make it all look like one outfit. Now I'm using acrylic paint to colorize it. You could use Inktense blocks. I tend to use color mediums that are permanent, because then I don't have to worry about future layers. And when you're starting, that might be something you want to try to help you have success, because there's nothing more frustrating than reactivating something in one of the first layers and making a mess. Now this Lovebirds stencil, I previously did this page, and here I put gesso over the whole thing and did a very painterly effect. On this page, I'm going to do it slightly different. I'm going to put the stencil back on. I'm going to line it up, put the stencil back on where I put the modeling paste through, and then colorize through the stencil. So both of them I've used modeling paste, I've just treated it differently. I'll put a link to that video if you want to check that out. So I'm just lining this up, getting it back in place. Again, masking off that part that I did not use. Now I could have just stenciled through this with the colors, but then there wouldn't be texture on the page, and I wanted to add some texture that just adds interest to your page. So I'm just going to use black and white, much the same as the cherry blossom that is in that background scrapbook paper. And I'm being careful not to have a lot of globby paint on my makeup sponge. So you see me pat off on my glass mat. So I'm doing the parts that are black first, the branches basically. And then I'm going to grab another makeup sponge and do the blossoms in red. Doing it by putting the stencil over top of the modeling paste and colorizing through the stencil leaves the background peeking through. The other way that I did with the other Lovebirds art journal page blocks off the background because you gesso the whole of the flower. So here I'm mixing the orange with the red again to match the color that's in that background. The color scheme is basically what was in that scrapbook page. And I'm picking elements and colors that coordinate with that. So that's another way of speeding up the process. I'm not having to really make color decisions. They have been made for me by using that instant background. And the reveal. I love it. It's subtle, it's not in your face, it's not taking away from the focal image, so it looks like it's further away. Now, on the bottom, there was that border, and so I'm just mirroring the border of the scrapbook page around the edge, and I'm painting a red-ish border. And I've mixed the red and the orange and a little bit of black, Mars black. And here I'm just using the ruler to get a straight edge. So I'm just making a very, very simple border. I'm not going to elaborate it too terribly much. And that just frames it. Then I've got some of that black on my brush and I'm dry brushing it on top of the dress. And this is picking up the wrinkles that come from the napkin. And then I'm taking a makeup sponge and rubbing lightly on it. And again, this is bringing up the texture from the napkin, which, yum. A quick, easy way to really shade and bring things out. So it looks like material now. Now I'm going to shade along the inside around the border. This is going to give that diffused shading black around the picture. So I challenge you to go through your stash and pick things that may not go together and see what happens. I grabbed my short and sweet sentiment pack, and I had these tea-stained sentiments. I printed them out on tea-stained paper. And I was going to use that. And then I saw in my short and sweet sentiment pack, I print some with black letters on a white background and some with white letters on a black background. I thought, gee, I like the black on here, so I test one out. I really like the contrast on the page. It shows up a little bit more than the tea-stained papers. So I'm looking through my pouch of printed off sentiments from this one to see what I can find. And I find the two sentiments. One was said dance and something said create every day. But so I used the word dance and every day because it goes with my little girl there. Dance every day. I'm just trimming off a little bit of the excess of the black. And gluing it down with gel medium. So use those scrapbook pages, pull out things and use them. Turn it upside down like I did with the napkin. A flower isn't always a flower. Sometimes it's a dress. Get creative. Combine things. You'll be surprised. Here I'm just shading around it to make it, gave it a little bit more weight on the page. And then I think, oh, I'm going to splatter with gold, but that really got lost. Other than when it splattered on the dress, you really didn't see it. So I splattered with the red, and then I splattered with black. One of the things that I could have done, that I just realized now, if I had done a very light wash of brown where the cherry blossoms go, where I stenciled them in, or just a white to knock back some of the busyness of the background, that may have made those cherry blossoms stand out a little bit more. But I love how this all came together. So there's that napkin. Until next time, go get creative.